So hello guys, welcome to our channel. In today's video, we will talk about the monolithic architecture and microservices architecture. We will see that what are their different benefits and drawbacks of both of the monolithic or microservices architecture. We also see some factors to when to choose a monolithic or microservices. So what is monolithic application? A monolithic architecture is a standard way of developing applications. In monolithic applications, all the modules are placed in a single place and all the components are depend on each other. Example here in this diagram, it is an example of an e-commerce app. Here all the modules are placed in a single unit and all components are tightly coupled and they are depend on each other. So it is a monolithic architecture where all the components are placed in a single place. So all the components are part of a single unit. Example in the diagram here, all the components are placed in a single unit and everything well deployed and scaled as one unit. And if you made any small change to any component, you have to redeploy the entire app, which is so much time consuming. Example, if you made any change in this payment module, you have to update all the application. And if there is any bug or error in any of the component or module, it can even down the entire app. So it is a monolithic architecture. So let's see some benefits of the monolithic application. The first benefit is that monolithic applications are simple to develop and maintain. All your code is placed in a single place. So to manage all the things from a single place is easy task. So the second benefit is these applications are easy to deploy. All your code base, all the components can be deployed as a single unit. And the third benefit is low cost. These applications are cost effective because you need less infrastructure or less resources to run monolithic applications. And the next benefit is it provides a single point of failure, which means if any one of the component of the application fails, so the entire application fails. This can be easy for finding problems and fix the problems. So as you better know that everything has some benefits and also have some drawbacks. So now let's check some drawbacks of monolithic applications. So one of the major drawback of monolithic application is it is difficult to scale as all the components are tightly coupled. If you want to scale any part of the application, you have to update the entire application, which is so expensive and also time consuming. And the next drawback is difficult to update. If you made any change to code, it will affect the other components. So you have to update the other components too. And if your application is handled by teams, it is even more difficult for them to manage the things. And the next one is increased complexity. As your application grows, the application becomes more difficult to manage. And the fourth one is not fault tolerant. If one part of the application fails, the entire application fails. So here are the drawbacks of this architecture. So how to solve the scaling issue? How we can solve the problem of creating the components? And how to make our application more fault tolerant? So to solve the challenges of monolithic applications, microservices comes to exist. So let's see what are microservices. In microservices architecture, an application is made up of loosely coupled services. Remember in monolithic, these are tightly coupled. And in this architecture, services are loosely coupled, which means they work independently and not depend on any other service. and also they communicate with each other using APIs. In this architecture, each service is responsible for a specific task or function. Let's see here in the diagram. See, all the services are independent. They are all responsible for a specific task. Here, payment, shopping cart, and product catalog, user authentication. These all are specific services. These all are independent and they can be scaled independently. So, the major problem of the scaling in the monolithic architecture is solved by microservices. So, here are some benefits of microservices. Scalability. As we discussed, services can be scaled independently. And fault tolerance. If one of the service fails, the other continue to work. Independent deployment and scaling. Scaled independently, which means easier to manage. Better choice for complex applications because they can be scaled and modified more easily. So here are some challenges of monolithic app which are solved by microservices. But as we know, everything have some benefits, also have some drawbacks. So let's check some drawbacks of this architecture. Now more complex to develop and maintain. So each service needs to be developed, tested, and deployed independently. So that's why this architecture is more complex to develop, more expensive to deploy. This architecture needs more resources and infrastructure. That's why it is expensive to deploy. More communication between services. Microservices architecture requires more communication between the services. This can lead to performance problems. So here are some drawbacks of this architecture also. Now let's talk about some factors that when to choose monolithic and microservices. Some factors to consider when choosing between monolithic and microservices architecture. The first factor is the size and the complexity of the application. Microservices architecture is a good choice for large and complex applications that need to be scaled and flexible. Monolithic architecture is good choice for small and simple applications that are easy to maintain. The expected growth of the application. If you expect your application to grow in size and complexity over time, microservices architecture is a good choice. This is because microservices can be added or removed easily as needed. Monolithic architecture is not as scalable, so it may be not the best choice for applications that are expected to grow significantly. The need of scalability. Microservices architecture is a good choice for applications that need to be able to handle a large number of users or a lot of traffic. This is because each service can be scaled independently. Monolithic architecture is not as scalable, so it may be the not the best choice for applications that need to handle a lot of load. The need of flexibility. Microservices architecture is good choice for applications that need to be able to change or update frequently. This is because each service can be changed or updated independently. Monolithic architecture is not as flexible, so it may be not the best choice for applications that need to be able to change frequently. And the most important is the budget. Microservices architecture can be more expensive to develop and maintain than monolithic architecture. This is because each service needs to be developed, tested, and deployed independently. Monolithic architecture is less expensive, but it may not be the best choice for large and complex applications. The skills and experience of the development team. Microservices architecture is more complex to develop and maintain than monolithic architecture. This means that the development team needs to have the skills and experience to work with microservices. Monolithic architecture is less complex, so it may be better choice for teams that do not have the experience with microservices. So here are some factors when choosing between which architecture you want to apply on your business. So thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the upcoming video.